Welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Hello and welcome to the STR Data Lab. I'm Jamie Lane, Chief Economist at AirDNA, and I'm joined today by a really exciting guest. We have Arthur Colker, the CEO of StayFi, joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Yeah, so you're joining us from Italy today. I heard before the show notes. So any interesting themes or things you've seen, and looks like you might be in a vacation rental from
In
Europe.
more of like an apart hotel kind of
Okay.
vibe. So it's a bit in the middle. So it has some more home amenities, but it's also kind of in a larger facility with some like pool and hot tub and like other things because
Yeah,
it's a ski lodge vibe.
cool. So really appreciate you joining because guest acquisition and is like it's something we don't talk about, but it feels sort of underappreciated in terms of what it could mean for your business. So on the show, we talk a lot about occupancy, ADRs, the trends, like how you're driving demand, what are the factors that I guess want. But what we don't talk a lot about is like the cost to acquire guests, uh, driving repeat guests, things like that. And I just wanted to sort of throw an open-ended question out to you is like, why do you think, like in general, tracking those sort of costs and those sort of trends aren't as like front of mind for hosts and property managers?
I really think, well, that's a complicated answer, I would say, because it really depends on the host and the property manager so
Okay.
much in terms of their level of growth, size, sophistication. I think on one hand, recently, especially for folks who started in the last 10 years, they entered as an Airbnb operator. It's definitely what we see. And then maybe they add other channels in the future. So I think there was just an understanding or a belief that like this one or multiple channels will like satiate my demand. But I think what people learn as they develop and start developing an independent brand, especially, is that a direct channel is not just about cannibalization. Like, it's not just I'm going to get a direct booking instead of an Airbnb booking. It's that I can drive my overall occupancy higher by having my own source of demand that I'm in control of, whether that's paid advertising, email marketing. All of those things come together to build out a really successful direct strategy. And so when we look at the data from our customers, we see that those that have larger email lists, have been doing marketing consistently for a long time, have higher overall occupancy rates, and are typically selling rooms further out in advance to their direct segment that they are marketing to.
Okay. I definitely want to dive into the OTA side, but maybe just for a refresher or and first time and for someone listening in, what is StayFi and what do you guys do?
Yeah, I think the first real distinction that I'll just make up front is that we talk about guest, but I really like to distinguish between booker and guest because in our space, we have a lot of people that have bookers, but there are many, many more guests that are outside of the person that booked. So really the idea behind StayFi is we wanted to develop an easy, seamless way for property managers or hosts to collect marketing data, not just from the booker, but from the entire guest reservation. And the first way that we did that we brought to market was through the Wi-Fi. So the experience for the guest is very much like logging on the Wi-Fi at a Starbucks or an airport. When you join the network for the first time, you get this thing called a splash page or a captive portal, which again is like a branding touch point because whether you're the booker or the guest, if you booked an Airbnb, up until this point, you probably are thinking about this lodging as an Airbnb. And so we want to start shifting the mindset of the guest in the property. And that allows us to collect data not just from the booker, but everybody there. And then as StayFi developed, we developed kind of all the remarketing tools you would need, email, text marketing, so that then you could systematically and easily follow up with all of the people that stay with you so that they are aware of why they should come back and book directly with you as a host or a property manager.
Okay. So I definitely want to get into that too around the sort of I assume you sort of consider yourself in that guest acquisition realm
Mhm.
and thinking about the guest acquisition, maybe tech stack. Because we work a lot with people on like their owner acquisition stack or their like it feels like there's and the two of the
It's a
main ways you go
two-sided
is
market. Yes.
yeah, more guests, more owners
Yes.
for property managers. But I did want to start on digging in on the OTAs because this has sort of lit up my and social feeds recently, as it feels like all the changes with Airbnb, maybe even Verbo. Uh, but start with like when a guest books through one of these other platforms and the OTAs, who actually owns the customer relationship in that transaction?
Once the guest inquires on an OTA, you really cannot divert the booking to be a direct one. That's kind of like if you read their terms of service, that's kind of the critical moment there. So once they're in that channel, they're exclusive to there. But there's a lot of like outside of Airbnb and Verbo, there's more precedence around that because I've transacted once through a platform, this platform cannot forbid me from doing additional transactions outside of the platform. So that's just like a really important distinction. But in this arena, like in Airbnb's chat or in Verbo's like messaging, you really cannot ask for like first party data, email, phone number, etc. There are some like loose language around like in order to enhance the stay or if it's required for legal or compliance reasons, runs, right? But like in this universe, it's pretty hard to collect that information from the booker once they're kind of moving forward with that transaction, which is why we need to find a compliant and legal way that we can still access that information, but do it outside of the OTA.
And how has that really changed? Because like I feel like when I first started hosting, like I got all the information I would need. Like I got their name, I got their phone number, I got their email. Like at least for the booker, it feels like all that information was right there for me. I just needed a way, and whether I was like putting in an Excel file or a way to capture it. But how has that changed broadly and over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, now it's all done through like proxies, which you have like limited access to. So even now for phone numbers with Airbnb, they are cutting those off. So you're doing things all through you see those very like long code Airbnb emails that you're like transacting with now. And obviously they did that because they were leaking bookings because people were getting that information and then diverting them outside. And also they always raise it from more of like a security and safety standpoint of like, if you make a booking outside of us, it's not like a trusted booking or it's not, we can't help you, right? So they have like the trust and safety argument about why once the transaction started, like they shouldn't move it outside because it could be fraud or like so many other things, right? So I understand that standpoint, but definitely from all of the platforms, they have been limiting that data more and more because for the safety reasons and also because they don't want to leak bookings and not get their commission, obviously.
Yeah. So, and how I've always thought of StayFi is like it's this platform that allows me to act like a hotel. Of when a user logs onto that Wi-Fi, they're able to get all that guest information, maybe get them to sign up for their loyalty to get the free Wi-Fi. But that whole premise is that the hotel doesn't actually have that information to begin with, right? So is essentially what we're seeing is the OTAs moving closer to a more closed ecosystem like hotels, or is it something else?
I think hotels and vacation rentals obviously have some similarities, but there are definitely some big differences. One is most hotels, although we do work with some, most hotels, the Wi-Fi captive portal is not a data collection touch point. It's more of like a confirm that you're a guest. Like it's more often like last name, email. If you stay at a large chain hotel, obviously they already have loyalty programs and they already know who you are and have your email and are marketing to you, etc. We do have customers that are like more in the independent segment. A lot of them also have like facilities in the hotel where they want to collect data from people like in the cafe or they're like visiting. But the other angle with hotels is it's typically max 2 guests a room. So like when someone checks in, you have a physical premise, then you can also collect email from at least the booker. So there's less kind of data outside of the primary guest as well. So there's like different reasons why it might be a little different. Also, hotels are much more locked into rate parity rules. So it's not as easy for them to sell a direct booking outside of loyalty which is why they have loyalty programs, because they basically can't have a price that's lower than what they list on booking.com or other OTAs. So they can't do what we can do in short-term rentals and be like, hey, you can get a lower price directly than you can through a platform. So there's less value proposition on the guest side outside of loyalty programs as well. So the marketing setup is definitely a little different in that way. And then obviously hotels, since they can't do price, they do other things. They do like early check-in, room upgrades, like hospitality credit when you're on the premise, things like that.
Do you think most hosts are aware of what they're missing out on by not having this contact info for their guest, either the booker or the rest of the party?
I think some are very aware. I think it just depends if they've had I think the more times someone has a bad experience with an OTA, in terms of like being penalized or having bad reviews, that's kind of what turns them on or is the spark in their mind of like, I need to start working on this direct booking problem. I think kind of the natural organic thing to look at if you are a host is, are people asking about coming back? Am I seeing repeat behavior? We launched this new thing called StayFi, which I can talk about later, which is trying to solve for the issue of if you're not in a destination that has a lot of repeat travel. Because obviously our StayFi model is very much dependent on the idea that these people want to come back or they want to refer other people. But there's definitely, depending on the destination and type of traveler, that can be easier or much harder. Luckily, a lot of vacation rentals are located in kind of like classic drive-to markets, ski destinations, beach destinations, where there is a lot of at least annual travel, like every year we go to XYZ place. So a lot of people are very well set up from that, but that's not true for every location and type of listing.
Yeah. I feel like I've got a vacation rental up in North Georgia, and I've had like probably 10 guests say like definitely coming to stay back. And then and the number of people that have actually booked again, it's one. And that one guest like called me and like because I guess they got my number through Airbnb and was like, how do I book direct? I don't want to pay fees anymore. But like I assumed part of the reason why I haven't driven direct bookings or repeat bookings is like if you're not sort of engaging
Consistently
that
following
guest.
up.
Yeah, like there's a reason why people follow up with you through email or through text or through phone calls because you need that sort of prompt of like, oh yeah, I did want to stay at that property again. Like, how do I do that?
Because that's a pretty competitive market. So, if you think about it, of those 10 people, did the other 9 people book somewhere else? Was your place not available? Did they look, right? But it's all about making a marginal difference. So if we could have driven that from 1 to 4 and you had 3 marginal direct bookings, and if one of those bookings maybe was on nights that otherwise weren't booked or would have been booked at a lower price, the ROI can happen pretty quickly, especially if you're the owner. Because if you get 1 week booking that was open, that can more than pay all of your marketing costs for the whole year. So that's why when we actually look at like the ROI from our customers, like maybe 30% is around the fees, like the actual Airbnb fee, but the biggest chunk is actually booking nights that otherwise would have been not booked or higher occupancy.
Yeah. And do you think this is mainly like a technology issue, an operational issue, like a mindset issue, or something else?
Could
Like
be all
what?
three.
Yeah.
Could be all three. I mean, definitely there is something to say about scale. So we look at our largest customers that have 500 plus homes. Like now, if like one in particular has been using StayFi for like 5 years, almost since we started. Their email list is like over 500,000 people. I mean, it's crazy. Every time they send an email, they're getting like 30 bookings, 50 bookings. So for them, they just like view emails as money. More emails is more money. Like it's a pretty simple equation for them, especially at that scale, because you always have availability and people can always book and things like that, right? So I think it's kind of like it's a slow shift. And I think the hardest thing that we find, which is the one where we're working on more tools for, is getting especially smaller operators to consistently market. Because a lot of times they get excited. And then if they don't see like I sent an email, I didn't get a booking, like it doesn't work. It's like, that's not how this works. Like if you have a list of 2,000 people, what percentage of them are ever in market to buy a vacation rental experience? It's probably not that many. So it's more about consistency, thinking of it more like a postcard because the key moment is when they're in market to book a trip. They need to remember, oh, should check this website too. Maybe it'll be cheaper there, or I know I already had that experience and know I love that place. Instead of booking an Airbnb where maybe it's kind of an unknown, like you have the reviews, but there's still a bit of like a trust gap for some folks. So once they have that relationship with a listing that they love, it's a higher propensity that they will return and want to have that experience again.
So the majority of listeners to the podcast are sort of small to mid-size operators, mostly owner operators, not property managers. So what do you think is like a realistic path for that operator, that owner, to start building some proportion of repeat demand? Like what are 2, 3, 4 things that you think would be the right steps to get started?
Well, I first want to have a brand, whatever that is, and having the ability to accept direct bookings on a website. You need some kind of identity for guests to associate, and that identity for a smaller operator, especially like a more of a traditional host, can be constructed around you, like your person, your family. Like if you go to a lot of vacation rental websites, it's like Bob, Jill, and the 2 kids and, like, a golden retriever, like, smiling, like, you know what I mean? Very much, "Oh, we love hosting, like, we're into hospitality, we're from this area, and we know everything about it," that kind of vibe, I think can work really well, is having more of a personal brand as opposed to very large operators can have a different type of brand. This doesn't really work for someone with a few listings. Luckily, now almost every property management software out there is gonna have a direct booking website of varying quality, but it's going to work. And a lot of them have all the tooling, insurance, damage waivers, like whatever you need to feel secure in accepting a direct booking and contracts and all that stuff. I think after that, it's really starting to build brand awareness from guests and trying to collect something from at least the booker. Like some property management software, they do like have kind of like forms or ways to maybe get the booker's information when you're not maybe not get the other guests, but at least the booker. So that's kind of like the way I look at it. It's like at least we want to get that one decision maker's information. And then I think thinking it even on a smaller scale, how can I do something like once a month to like follow up with all the people that stayed and gave me a 5-star review? Even one-to-one emails are very successful. So we often recommend we have templates for that in our own email software of instead of writing like what you think of like a traditional newsletter with like photos, actually writing more of like B2B software, like sales types emails where it appears like I wrote you an email in Gmail, like it's plain text, hi first name, like this is John. I manage the blah 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 property you stayed at, last year. Like if you ever want to come back, I just want to let you know that if you like contact me, I can like save you 10% versus going through Airbnb with the fees. So that kind of like one-to-one marketing is very successful on a smaller scale. And also from like a deliverability standpoint, when you have Gmail, which is what most people have, you have like Gmail and then you have like the promotions folder, right? Stuff that looks like a promotional email gets shunted in the promotions folder, going to have lower open rates. Like plain text email can have like 30, 40, 50% open rates and higher response rates. And people might organically just write back and say, hey, like, oh, I'm planning to come back in 2 months. Thanks for letting me know. So that kind of like one-to-one engagement, or at least what appears to be one-on-one engagement, is going to be the most successful way to market at a smaller scale with a smaller list. And those emails are very easy to build because you don't have to like find photos and the prices and do all that kind of stuff and pretend and like worry that it doesn't appear like designed well enough.
Right. And probably, and if you were doing it super manually, you could go back through all your messages with that guest, like figure out like what they liked about the property, really personalize it. Maybe that's something an AI could help you do of like, hey, this is my history. Like now I want to follow up. Like, what should I mention?
A good thing to ask, like we have a automated email that we send out on checkout to the whole group. A great thing just to ask there is like, hey, if you're planning on coming back, like reply to this email if you know. Because a lot of times people already know, like, oh, I'm going on 2 ski trips this year. I'm gonna come back in Colorado to like in 2 months, whatever. If you catch them then and they like respond, then of course you can make like a calendar note or just some way of following up, like, okay, in 2 weeks I'm gonna like ping that guest or ask them like, oh, when's a good time to follow up because I can get you a better rate. So just kind of like trying to capture future anticipated demand from guests is also really valuable.
Yeah. there's also this whole sort of question around the cost of acquiring guests. And I feel like it's actually one of the downstream benefits of this whole Airbnb switching people to host fees instead of split
It's
fee
very clear.
is that like, oh wow, like this is actually how much it cost me to acquire this guest versus how in the past it was like, oh, it's only 3%. Like the guest has to pay this other 12%, but since I don't see it, it's not actually a cost.
Yeah,
Like, even though like,
it was.
yeah, it was like the difference between what a guest was paying and what you're collecting is the cost to acquire it. Now it's so much more clear. How do you think those costs have changed? And do you think, I mean, it's becoming clearer for hosts on like on the actual costs of using the OTAs?
Well, now obviously it's a lot cleaner when you just see what the number is. But in my general perspective, I just feel like Airbnb is becoming Booking.com. Booking.com is like a much more successful from like on the stock market. Like they have much better performance than Airbnb, and Airbnb is like putting on hotels, moving to a similar fee model. The scary thing I think for people to realize is that Booking.com charges the hotels a lot more than 18%. Like they charge independents like 25%,
Yeah.
30%, because like without booking, if you're in Europe and you're in an independent hotel, there is no demand. And I think many people don't realize in the United States, like without Airbnb, you're kind of toast for many folks. So they have a lot of market power to go higher on fees. Like, let's be honest. Like, if they made it 22, would anyone like everyone would have to stay? No one can leave. You know what I mean? So I think, especially once they start in hotels and there's more competition, right? So I think that's the general direction of that platform. And I also think that awareness around costs, outside of the other pain that they can cause you, as for like resolution around issues too, I think will become more and more evident. I think they are, I think they're betting on the fact that like big vacation rental brands have all failed. Like it's very hard to scale a brand. We have some franchises that are pretty national, but they have very low guest awareness. And even like some of the best like quality brands from like a Stay, I think is like a very great brand when you like look at it, experience it in the homes, the product, everything, but still like generating any awareness among guests near like what a hotel brand has achieved is like very, very, very far away.
Yeah. And it's been part of my general thought over the years of like the ROI of creating a direct booking site. And like what you say around driving repeat bookings makes total sense, right? Like outside of that though, like to actually drive demand to my direct booking site, whether through I'm gonna put up Facebook ads, do Google, like spend a lot of time and effort on SEO. Do you think and having a non-OTA strategy is like worth it for most hosts? Or is it a scale issue like 1 to 2 listings? Like maybe 20 plus, absolutely. How do you think about the ROI of going direct?
Yeah, I mean, okay, there's a few things there. One, for smaller hosts, the most successful ones are very much is very much engaged with social media, and they typically have unique or interesting properties. Like that is gonna, if you have something cool that you're selling and you're good at social media, that is gonna be the best ROI in that space. Obviously, on the paid advertising side, you need to be like a pretty scaled property manager. But when you look at many markets in the US and you look up, Savannah vacation rentals, 3 of the top 5 results are gonna be local brands because Google prefers local brands over OTAs because OTAs have budgets and they want them to pay. So they're not gonna put Airbnb, Booking, Expedia up there. They want them to spend $1 billion on AdWords every year or plus. So for larger brands and markets, they can be the top result for many of those top turns, and for them, investing in it makes a ton of sense. On the AdWords side too, it's pretty, if you get a $1,000 booking, it costs $180 on Airbnb, right? Like I can make AdWords where I'm saying I'm willing to pay up to $80 for a transaction. And there's like some attribution issues and it's kind of like a leaky bucket, whatever. But at the end of the day, like if you're more sophisticated, you can tailor your digital ads to like deliver you bookings at the same or lower cost than an OTA. But for smaller folks, it's really hard. Which brings me to like the new. So we launched a new product 2 months ago called Stay Finder, And that's kind of like our attempt to help smaller folks get net new guests to discover their direct booking website. So the way that works is for those customers that want to be like featured highly on StayFinder, that use StayFi, in addition to opting in to like having access to the guest data themselves, they give us the ability to market to those guests. So we have like tens of thousands of properties that are in that group. So when you go to that website and you search for accommodations, we just return the direct price and the Airbnb price. So for our smaller folks, that's like really we're trying to help them there with net new discovery. Because now I can go to a market, look in Nashville, and I can see, oh, here's 30 listings where I can pay less direct. And we're leveraging like all the hundreds of thousands of guests we're getting from our customers to like drive demand onto the website. So we're trying to build this meta search where we can help bookers find smaller direct brands, but that's definitely like a huge uphill climb and a big task that we're taking on.
And for you guys, is that's more of like a net benefit of being part of the StayFi ecosystem, or are you guys actually trying to take a share or a percent of transactions?
It's a benefit for being part of the StayFi ecosystem. So we want listings everywhere. So we've basically matched every direct listing to every Airbnb listing that we can in the US. We think there's around 200,000 that have direct listings. We've matched like 80,000 and we're like systematically matching more. So we think we'll get around 200,000 matches with better prices at the end of the day, which is kind of sad because Airbnb probably has like 2 to 4 million listings. You probably know better than me how many they have in the US. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, it's about 2 million.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of active, like with at least one review, it's about 1.5 million. So
Yes, I think at the end of the day, we're only going to match around 10% with the direct listing, but there probably aren't that. There's probably many that do not have direct listing websites outside of that group. So we'll see where that ends up. But anyways, yeah. So the idea there is like if you're a customer, we'll rank you like first. If you share data with us, we'll rank you even higher than them, and then everyone else we rank after that. But we view it as like a rising tide lifts all boats.
yeah. So this wasn't part of the questions I had prepared, but you sort of triggered this sort of thought. This morning on Good Morning Hospitality, you showed a stat on how much the OTA stocks have lost in the past week. Like Booking.com's down like 15%, down 20% the past month. And it's all around these fears that AI agents are going to all of a sudden start connecting bookers with direct sites and that's going to disintermediate the OTAs.
Well, we are building said agent. So and we are building our own chat GPT application so that
Right.
because the honestly is the if you ask right now at least, and I think it'll take a very long time. If you ask Claude or ChatGPT, here's an Airbnb listing, find me the direct listing, they cannot do it. It's very challenging, and they can't return the price. That's still far away. We actually use AI tools to help build and make all those matches, but it's still like kind of like a special. You need to like kind of specialize it and not be a generalist tool. I mean, that's like a whole other issue of like, are we going to end up with a lot of specialized agents, or is it something generalist going to become so good that can do everything? Which is like a whole other question. But anyways, yeah, no, I mean, I think didn't Airbnb like first say they weren't going to build an application, then now they went back on it. I haven't really been following that closely. Honestly, I think the biggest thing there is people like shopping a lot of like variety. And I think most of the agentic experiences are pretty like prescriptive. Like, here's the top 5. That's like on the SEO side too. Like, people have been like, if you're not in the top results, like AI agents really cut you off. So I think from like a shopping experience, I don't know. I think it's kind of right now, at least AI is like kind of part of the journey. So like the people look on booking.com, they ask AI like, oh, what are the 5 best hotels in X location? Then they go back to booking.com, whether they would like finish the transaction there and whether it can connect you with those hotels directly, perhaps. The other thing is kind of like that's an area for monetization. Like at least we know ChatGPT wants to monetize that. So is Booking just going to like buy all that ad space? Small and independent hotels probably cannot compete there, just like in Google. So I think it'll be interesting to see like how much does the SEO framework and SEM framework translate to AI agent experiences, or if it's going to be like a total disruption into a new world. So very unclear, TBD.
Yeah. No, and seeing the demos of like Booking.com and Expedia building their apps directly into the LLMs where it like takes you into that experience, like where you see you don't just get served one or two options. It's like when I'm reviewing a vacation rental, like I want to see all the options. I want to be able to filter down more. I want to be able to see the location. Like just I'm viewing the hero photo and saying, oh yeah, like book that one. Like it just doesn't feel like that's going to be the experience.
I mean, even for vacation rentals, like vacation rentals have not really been like Google vacation rentals, like vacation rental meta search and like kayak and stuff. Hotels just have a much more like it's a Marriott, it's like a W, it's a St. Regis. Like they know people know what those things are, they know what they mean. You know, bare hollow cabin like means nothing. You need to do a lot more investigation.
Yeah. And maybe that's a reason why
Yeah.
I'm booking stock is down 15% this week and Airbnb is only down 7 of like the opportunity for AI to disintermediate on the hotel side might just be significantly more than on the vacation or short-term rental side.
Yeah, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Well, or it will be the same players in a new space.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing too. I feel like in the last 2 weeks, like ChatGPT has lost a lot of momentum, and I feel like Anthropic's on the rise. So I mean, who knows? Even you're going to build all these apps for something that may not be relevant in like 2 years. So TBD.
Yeah. So, and this has been really helpful in thinking about sort of guest acquisition, and data to capture. And the other question I had from you is like, how do you know when you're like doing well at this? Like, I got one booking through phone and that guy's phone call, and like I was able to send him my direct link to book, and he did it. And I was like, man, check that one off the list. Like I'm driving repeat bookings through my direct channel. But ultimately, like it's like 2% of my overall bookings. Uh, so like, is there like a North Star on like for either small or mid-sized property or operators of like, what do you see? Like, what am I sort of
The high,
trying to
outside
get
of
to? High
outside of
watermark, maybe.
outside
Yeah.
of like spectacular social media, like one-off properties,
Mhm.
the more I would call like a typical operator, the highest that we see is like around 60% of the bookings are direct. And that's someone who's been like working on it and they maybe have 3 to 10 properties. I'd say less than that can be hard. There is a few, which I would give you the names of if I had prepared them. There's one in Quebec, and I love this woman, and now I can't remember her name. And she's like, I did a session with her and Logify because she uses Logify. And definitely it's kind of just like a systematic approach
Uh-huh.
of collecting all data, remarketing to all guests, building an independent brand, making sure every single guest that comes through the door knows who you are and how to return, collaborating with local businesses, thinking like creatively about like other channels to acquire people directly. So there's like many layers to it, but you know, I think she's very happy she invested all the time into it because now she can just upmark her OTA listings higher. So for them, so that's kind of the weird thing that happens. So for our folks that are like 60 to 80%, their OTA bookings are more profitable than direct bookings because they mark the prices so much higher. They're like, I'm only willing to deal with Airbnb if someone's willing to pay like 30% more. And that's what we see like from our most, let's say, advanced direct booking folks.
Yeah.
That's what I remember Tyann from Branson Family Retreats. For her, she's like Airbnb is like 50% higher than direct. And if I get that booking, great, because I'm willing to deal with it if they're willing to pay that much.
Yeah, as long as you don't need that to
That's
be
what
a
I'm saying.
big
That's when
yeah,
if your direct
that
is big enough, then you can flip the script and
right.
you're in control of your own demand and destiny and not the other way around, which I think is where people would want to be. But I'm not going to say that getting there is easy because all of the people that I've dealt with that have got to that level are like pretty, I don't say extraordinary. They are pretty extraordinary, but they've been very thoughtful. They have interesting properties. They have consistent branding. They always speak from a brand voice. They have very exceptional like guest reviews and experience. So it's definitely like a total hospitality package, but it's there if someone wants to do it. It's definitely possible.
Yeah. The sort of last sort of questions I had for you and get into what else maybe I need to do to and get on this journey. So I immediately start thinking of the complexity of like the tech stack need to do it. Like, all right, do I need a CRM now? Like a customer and relationship management database and software tool there? Do I then need to have like an email sending software? Like, and here in Atlanta, like feels like everyone uses MailChimp or something like that. Like it feels like all those additional things, or do am I
Obviously, you
fine
just
just
use
like
StayFi. That will solve all your problems, at least from my
uh,
perspective.
I'm organizing in Excel and manually sending emails? Like what is it, what is the sort of range there of what I need and basic on to automate?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say you need some way to collect data, and obviously, I think we have a exceptional way to do that, but there's other ways to collect usually less data, but some data is better than nothing. I think the other thing there is getting permission, and that's can be hard in some of those other ways. Like you really should have the guest opt in if you want to be compliant with can spam, which is an ironically named law because it's really cannot spam should be the aim of it. But yeah, so that's number one. And then we like our email tool is like free if you have a PMS up to I believe 200 contacts, which is like the same model as Mailchimp. So we both have like freemium models. Obviously, our tool is designed for vacation rental, so like the templates and automations are specific. Tools like Mailchimp are obviously great, but they're more generic because they're built for any industry and they don't have vacation rental like oriented stuff because we're too niche. But yeah, so like we definitely tell people that are smaller to lean on automations. It's like I mentioned before, like at arrival, at departure, a month after departure, 8 months after their stay, that kind of stuff, where you can also do the text, kind of like text based email. That's very successful. So what we typically tell people to start up with is like, we're going to collect data and then we're going to send an email every month. And if you don't feel confident you're going to like actually do it every month, we can help you set up an automation for every month. We'll send an email for the next 12 months that everyone's enrolled in. Because then you can put time in one time and create 12 emails about 12 different things to do in Georgia. That's not so like time based because obviously it can't be like if they're getting an email every month, it can't be like based around specific events, but it could be about this home, about this place to go, about hiking in this forest, whatever. Create the 12 emails, and then everyone's gonna get content for the next 12 months, regardless of what I do. So it's really kind of like a one-time exercise to make sure that you're like set up for the future. And then I think it's kind of like if you get some positive response, like the moment you get the email back of like, oh, I am coming in 2 weeks. What can I book? I think once you see that kind of like initial traction, that's when people get excited and they want to invest more into it. But it's kind of getting that, feeling you kind of have to set yourself up because if you just think you're going to do one thing and it's going to happen, it's not going to work that way. So, at least usually. So, it's kind of like setting yourself with the right system, and then you'll start seeing things start to trickle in, and then you'll feel more motivated to keep adding.
What do you typically see as the reason if someone gets going with StayFi of like why they aren't successful? Like, is it that they're not engaging with it? They're not like
Not
using
using
it.
it.
They're
Yeah.
not using it.
Yeah, that's definitely the number one reason they're not successful. I'd say, yeah. So, I mean, for that was kind of like an early lesson. I definitely came from the software world of like self-service, like
Yeah.
you just because that's how I use software. I'm like, I sign up for it. I'm just gonna figure it out and do it myself. And if I'm gonna pay for it, I'm gonna make sure I use it well. But I think in our space, for good reason, a lot of people are not doing this as a full time job. Even if they are, they have many responsibilities and are kind of like little. If your like pricing isn't working and you're not your Airbnb listing and you have guests complaining and all these different things are happening, I understand like we're like low on the urgency list of things to be doing is like sending a marketing email. So I get that. So, we are very much leaned into customer success for our people with more than 10 listings. We're like very on top that people set up these systems. And now we also have like a paid service. So for $200 a month, we'll like send all your emails for you and set everything up. It's not as like robust as some of the bigger agencies. It's more like we're going to show you what we're going to send and you can give us some feedback and then we're going to send it because people are very much like caught up sometimes on like getting things perfect when it's like we just need to be reminding folks that you exist and that's how you'll be successful. So that's number one is just consistency because if you collect data and don't send anything for 12 months, you're going to have a problem when you send an email to everybody because they're not going to remember who you are and you're going to get people unsubscribe or spam you, say you're spam. So if if you're not doing anything and you're collecting, that can be a problem after a few months.
Yeah. No, that's great. So, Arthur, I really appreciate you joining, especially on your ski trip. This has been a
Luckily, it's late here, so this was very easy to do.
uh, uh, insightful conversation for me and learning what I should be doing. And definitely, I'm not doing enough for my properties. If people want to find you, want to find more about StayFi, what's the best way to do that?
Go to stayfi.com, stayfi.com. There you can book a demo with our team. To use our service, you don't need to use the Wi-Fi tool. So we have like Wi-Fi data collection, but we sell like the email marketing separately. So you can get it together, separate. It doesn't really matter. It's all a la carte. So it's kind of like if you meet with us, we will find what is the right fit for your business. And then now if you are interested in like, I'd say if you have more than 5 to 10 properties, if you're like, hey, I'd rather just outsource this, now we can also just do all the emailing for you, which I think will, make people feel more confident that they're going to be successful.
Awesome. Any closing thoughts for the audience?
I would just say like, think beyond the booker. That's always my number one thing, especially if you operate homes that are larger. People are very booker centric in this industry. I think it's just really important to remember about everybody who's there and that it's worth marketing to everyone there because you never know like who's going to be coming back or referring you to somebody else.
Awesome. Arthur, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.